Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course from New Earth One Network. This is designed exclusively for your higher self connection and embodiment. Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course brought to you by New Earth One Network. We are talking about a new modality, a healing modality, and it's all about fascia in our body. It's something that is fascia decompression, and it is the missing link in healing. My guest today has developed this healing modality on her own journey on planet Earth. Let's welcome Deanna Hansen to this very special episode. Hello, Deanna.
Hello, Lauren. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
We are excited because this is a beautiful modality that blends a few modalities into one comprehensive technique that you've actually used in your own life. Let's start with you. What's the story with this? How did this come about?
So I'm 53 next month. And back in my 20s, I was training to be an athletic therapist. And I was always focusing on deep tissue work as my profession was taking me through the program. And also learning about, as an athletic therapist, we deal with professional athletes. And I was applying everything I was learning to my own personal being, but my body was not surrendering to what I was doing. In fact, the harder that I was working to try to get a grip on my own well-being and my size and shape and my personal issues and struggles, the worse I actually became. And I made some very big changes when I was turning 30. And these were necessary changes, but they ultimately resulted in me having these really severe anxiety attacks. And this one anxiety attack in particular was the seed of everything to come, because in that moment, I didn't know if I was going to live. I couldn't find my breath. I was literally frozen with fear. So for some reason, I intuitively dove my hand into my abdomen. And in that moment, I let out a gasp and connected to pain. But the pain brought me out of my crazy thinking. It brought me to the ground. And then I continued to intuitively explore with my hands in this tissue. And what was very interesting was I was connecting to all of this marbled scar tissue, even though I hadn't had any injury or surgery in that area. So as a body worker, an athletic therapist for 5 years at that time, I was very familiar with what scar tissue felt like in bodies. That's what I would work with all the time. So for me to dive into this space and connect with that, suddenly I was having all these aha moments. Like, no wonder when I'm coming home from a 5-mile run, dripping wet with sweat, my belly was still cold. So this started this understanding of what was going on in my body. So I remember waking up the next morning, and I had spent maybe 30, 45 minutes working intuitively in my tissue. And I was a little tender the next day, but I was also very calm, something not normal for me. So I went and I had my work day working on patients, and I was really excited to come back and to continue this exploration. So after the second night of intuitively working in this space, when I stood up, I felt taller. And I went, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I literally began to cry because my belly was flatter than it looked in years. And I mean, I was extreme in everything I was doing. I was doing 400 sit-ups a day, Tai Bo, training for half marathons, aerobics, like you name it. And I was trying it. And again, the harder that I worked, the more compressed, the more ballooned, the more pain I accumulated, the more constipated I became. So as I was working so hard and ultimately failing at my goal, within 2 days of this very simple exploration, I was already seeing positive changes. So that excited me immensely. So every day I would come home from work and I would continue working on my body. After 2 weeks, My chronic low back pain was almost gone. And I started flipping my patients onto their backs because I wanted to see what I could do for them. And very quickly, I started having these incredible results with my clients. I started attracting other therapists that wanted to learn what I was doing because they were hearing of these healings that were happening to these people. So that was what began the journey. And so as I continued, I really wanted to teach people self-care. So I did try teaching people how to use their hands on their own body, but there was a lot of limiting factors to that. So it was, for the first decade or so, I was really focused on teaching therapists the technique to do on clients. But about 10 years in, I intuitively realized through this process that I don't have to use my hands. And it was a really neat moment for me because every Monday night I would have this lovely yoga teacher come and teach me a restorative yoga class. So she had me in a side lying twist over a bolster, and she cautioned me how deep that went and to be careful. And I thought, for 10 years now, I've been driving my hands into my whole body, head to toe, and I hardly even felt that bolster there. So I had an Iyengar wooden block from my earlier yoga days sitting nearby. And I said, I want to lie on that. I want to feel this. And she's like, oh my gosh, like, you're crazy. Don't do that. And I'm like, no, trust me. I want to do this. And as soon as I did, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't need to use my hands on my body. I can use my body weight and gravity and move into this tool to affect a very similar sensation to what my hands were doing. The challenge was the block was rectangular, so they had sharp edges. So again, limiting factors to that. So over the course of the next 2 years from that point, one of my body workers, who was also a woodworker, he and I developed the actual size and shape of the tool. So it's very comfortable moving through those layers of fascia to get to the root of the problem, which is at the bone. So we want to be able to dive deep through these layers. And we do so in the armpits, the belly, the groin, throughout the entire body. So there needs to be a level of comfort combined with the depth that we're going. And that's why the tools are developed specifically with this size. And there's actually two sizes. There's a buddy and a baby.
Okay, fascinating story of your own journey of exploration, following your intuition. That's really great. And so the tools, and you're using body weight and gravity, and it's working the fascia. And you said that you're moving through layers of fascia. Let's talk about the fascia. What's going on from your experience? Is this our mental constructs, our emotion? Is it just physical movement? What is fascia and how is it affecting us? How is it being created by our actions?
Yeah, and actually it's all of those things. The fascia is an absolutely fascinating system. And I loved it because about 6 months ago, and this is on my YouTube channel, we did a discussion with Gil Headley. So Gil Headley is an anatomist who basically dives into cadavers to learn and understand fascia. And years ago, back in around 2007, I watched his fuzz speech where he was talking about the adhesions between the layers of fascia. So we had him on 6 months ago. And what was so fascinating was he talked about how through his continual exploration of the fascia, he realizes there's different layers to this. And he started talking about a layer called the perifascia. And as soon as he did, I said, that's what we're addressing with block therapy. So my interpretation of fascia is literally we have trillions of cells in the body. So every cell is interconnected through the fascia system. And I actually see that the surface cell membrane of every cell is actually part of the perifascial system connected to every other cell in the body. I live in a 30-story building. So I basically see the fascia as being the walls, the floors, the ceilings. So there's space inside for us to live, which would be what goes on inside the cell. But this entire building is connected through the architecture of the building. So the fascia is the system that allows the cells to communicate with each other. It's the structure that keeps us upright and keeps our form as it should be. But the challenge is we need to know how to look after the fascia system. And most people really haven't been given this information, which is really the foundation of what this program is all about. So there's 3 pillars to block therapy. And it's not even just block therapy. It's really about fascia decompression. Block therapy is a tool that is very effective at decompressing the fascia. So if we think about it, again, we have trillions of cells and every cell has a position that it should be in for optimal health, because ultimately what it comes down to is space. There needs to be space between and in the cells for flow, for the blood and oxygen to be able to drop off the nutrients to the cell, as well as for the byproducts of functioning, the toxins to be removed from that cell. So basically our system can stay fluid and everything flows with ease. So here's the challenge. Gravity is this constant force pulling us down toward the earth. So gravity combined with unconscious posture and incorrect breathing literally takes away that internal space. Basically, as we get older, we get shorter and wider. So it's the internal space that we're losing over time, which is causing pain, aging, disease, because the fascia is designed to support us being upright. And if you look at the majority of people, because we're dominant on one side, for me, my fallout posture is to shift my weight over to my left leg. I was a provincial volleyball player, always hitting in this one direction. So basically we wind down and we age in a forward rotational direction. So as we start tipping off balance, the fascia is saying, well, wait a second, I don't want you to tip over. So it creates these grips onto other structures as well as bone to support us from tipping over. So if I've been sitting in front of a computer for 20, 30, 40 years, 8 hours a day, ultimately what happens is the fascia creates these adhesions and it literally seals us magnetically with a force up to 2,000 pounds per square inch. So that, I mean, if you think about the immense pressure inside the body from that, it's incredible to think about, but because we live it all the time, we don't even recognize it. So the first pillar of block therapy is to melt through those adhesions to create the space that we've lost over time. And we do that by applying pressure for a minimum of 3 minutes in whatever position that we're in, because pressure over time creates heat. Combine that with the second pillar, and this is really the biggest key, proper diaphragmatic breathing. So I'm just going to bring my camera down. The diaphragm is a plate of muscle that supports the rib cage. When it functions optimally, it moves down with the inhale, up with the exhale, and it's this continual pump moving up and down. So right below the diaphragm, we have all the abdominal organs. Right above it, we have the heart and the lungs. Right through here, leaving the heart, we have the aorta, the main artery supplying the entire body. So if I'm collapsed like this, now this plate of muscle that's supposed to be moving up and down, it gets folded over and it doesn't function properly. And we resort to breathing through the muscles of the upper chest. So when we do that, a number of things happen. First of all, when that plate is working optimally, the heart, the lungs, the organs are getting a continual massage. And that massaging aspect heats the area. And everything needs to be at a specific temperature to function optimally. When things start to get colder, I live in Winnipeg in Canada, and we have freezing cold winters. So if I leave my car out, I got to start it for half an hour before I can actually drive it because it's too cold to function. So as our bodies cool down from incorrect breathing, our systems slow down. The flow slows down in general. And that really ultimately, in my view, is what causes pain, aging, and disease. So when we are conscious diaphragmatic breathers, what's exciting is we can feed the body up to 6 times the oxygen. And people will say, well, that doesn't make sense. We can't breathe 6 times the air into the lungs, but it's about where we're directing the air, because at the base of the lungs is where the majority of the alveoli, the oxygen receptor sites, reside. So if we're breathing through the muscles of the upper chest, we're not pulling the air deeply enough into the lungs to reach this bed of abundance for absorption. And in 2014, they did a study in Australia proving that 84% of weight loss comes through proper exhalation. So for me, when I was in my 20s, working hard, not eating a lot, and getting bigger, it was like, how come the rules of weight loss aren't applying to me? It's because I was literally frozen with my breath. So that's the second pillar. So as we release the adhesions through the blocking, and we teach you while you're on the block how to properly connect to this breath, we start pumping blood and oxygen into these newly created spaces, and then rejuvenation happens. It's incredible how efficient the body is at repairing itself. And then the third pillar is teaching how to maintain that newly created space through applying proper postural foundations. Even the tongue muscle is a muscle designed to help support the weight of the head, but it's not just for chewing and talking. And yet, if we don't use this muscle properly, it actually becomes a hindrance. It actually helps to pull the body forward and more out of alignment. And people think they have a double chin. They actually have a weak and displaced tongue. So we address all of these things through the process and the program, and we make it really, really simple and effective so that we can release the negative fascia pattern that you've been in and pull the body back into a better balance. And we go through steps so that we can very effectively pull those cells back to where they're supposed to be, so there's optimal space for flow.
And let's do a little example here in a moment. What I love about it is it's the opposite of what we're programmed to think in terms of physical fitness, right? Like you even learned in your own life, like going for this and doing that exercise and just going for it and all of it. But this takes it to a whole new level where we're actually slowing down. We're actually relaxing enough for that rejuvenation of the body and the breath. So it would be very interesting for you to give us a little mini session to give us an example or a mini demonstration of what this is like. Is there space for that here?
Yeah, I'll just undo this so I can take the very, very first position that we do with every single class. And I have well over 150 hours of classes in my membership, but we always start right on the belly button, because again, the key is we really want to engage and teach people where the breath should come from. So basically, it's so simple. And you can do this in bed or on a floor. So you can be an elite athlete, you can be bedridden, and you can still access this information and this work. So what we do is we place this here, and very simply, I'm going to lie right on that belly button. And then through the work, we instruct people to breathe from this space. So again, when people are breathing through the muscles of the upper chest, I'm actually going to show you the difference, because this is really important. I'm going to take 2 breaths properly, and then I'm going to take 2 breaths incorrectly. So when we're breathing diaphragmatically, when we inhale, the belly should become big. When we exhale, it should become small. Now, this is how most people breathe. So you can see the chest rising and falling instead of the belly. And again, that has many, many, many consequences to our health and how we age. Specifically, really about the heating aspect, because this is like turning on the internal furnace. This is like breathing with a space heater. And we don't want to use these weak muscles for how we breathe all the time. Now, the challenge is because when we collapse out of alignment this way, to try to connect to that right in the beginning, it's hard, because literally this plate of muscle, it's become folded. It's kind of like a frozen shoulder. We have a frozen diaphragm. So we need to give it some time and attention. So when we lie on the tool and we focus on proper breathing, then we have a prop to breathe into and a very effective way at teaching how to do this. Each position we hold for a minimum of 3 minutes. So this is how we start each and every class. The rib cage also very important, because as we collapse out of alignment, the space between the ribs decreases, and then the ribs will actually adhere together. So we end up with this hard container instead of a nice fluid, flexible container that can move with ease because there's space. So another example of a position is the side ribs. And it's very simple. And again, you can do this in bed, you can do this on a floor. And what we teach people to do is search for pain, because pain equals adhesion. And we want to melt through those adhesions. So again, we can pump that blood and oxygen flow. And then as you're lying here, we teach you to search for pain by moving slowly and by twisting. And this is all part of the instruction in all of the classes. And as you become a pain seeker, what's amazing is the pressure fibers in the body are larger than the pain fibers. So initially it might be painful, but then as you connect to the breath, suddenly that pain changes. And then we teach you to search for more pain, because we're diving deep through the layers. We're not on the surface layer. We're not moving on the block. We're diving in to get to those adhesions that connect all the way to the bone. And it's through searching for pain that we do this. What is so empowering for people is when they recognize that they have control of their pain and they have a way to move past that pain. And that also translates to life. If we're in a stressful situation, we learn how to breathe through the stress and how to move it out of the body so it doesn't get stuck, because that's what trauma is. Pain, fear, and stress cause us to reactively hold the breath. So we're still going to breathe. We're designed to survive, but we won't be breathing from this muscle, and we'll start breathing here. We'll start to pull in. And then if I've had an injury or I've had a traumatic event, we basically do this. And then if we don't release it, that's how we stay. And then we age from that point forward. So the emotion, the understanding of what happened, and the physical body are all wrapped up into what's going on with this. We work in the head. We can even do, I have a program, a 21-day head, neck, and face program, incredible, to improve blood flow to the brain, to lift the face. We work it here. We work it through the cheek. We work every aspect of the body, head to toe. So because the fascia innervates every single cell in the body, it doesn't matter the situation that you're in. This is going to help by melting adhesion and improving blood and oxygen flow to cells. Your situation improves no matter what we're dealing with. Was that enough of a demonstration, or do you want me to show more?
Oh my gosh, you can continue to show more. It's just amazing. And the results that people get. So the heat and the release of that, what are you feeling? Do you feel like longer and taller?
Yes, because again, as we become older, we become shorter and wider. There's literally a space-time continuum. As we go through time or age, we decrease in internal space. As we put the space back into the body, we take the time out. So that's the exciting part. So, I mean, the number of changes for people's faces is incredible, their whole body, even weight loss, because again, from a perspective of weight loss, which I discovered personally, when we're sitting in collapse, I mean, if you see me from the side, if this is my typical posture and I'm sitting this way, that's going to happen. Even from the back, I find this one is incredible, the difference from correct alignment to incorrect alignment. When I see this, I feel like I'm at least 20 pounds bigger than if I'm sitting correctly. So to understand the impact of posture on how we look, how we appear, how we function, it's incredible. So from the leg perspective, the IT band is, something many people have struggle with. This is so much different than rolling on the IT band, because again, the goal is that we go deeply through the layers to get to the bone. If I'm rolling, I'm staying on the surface. It's like you're riding a boat on the ocean. We're deep sea diving with this process. We're taking our time. We're finding that pain. We're working through it. We're melting those adhesions. And then when that happens, the toxins get released, the adhesions released, so the cells migrate back and the tissue changes its alignment. One of the things that we often feel as we age, especially for women, is we get that inner thigh, what we think is fat. It's actually not fat, it's displaced fascia because of how we stand over time. So there's always a migration. Just like when I collapse, there's a migration of my belly outward. I don't have extra fat, I have less space, I have congestion and ballooning, and now I'm more toxic. Now I'm attracting more parasites, they create waste, the cells expand even bigger. So I really view, of course, what we eat matters, but I really view having a healthy size and shape comes down to fascia decompression and detoxification, as opposed to calories in versus energy expenditure.
We have to really relax and go to the blocks, this block therapy, and learn how to breathe. So when you're on, what does that feel like when you are, like you were on the IT band? Because we do see that in gyms and the rollers.
Yes.
So when you're doing that, and it's different for everyone, but what did you feel there? Did you feel that up in your hips? Was it connected to other parts in your body, or was it right there localized where your body met the block?
Both. Definitely where you're lying on it. Again, initially you're connecting to pain. That's kind of the point, but you're in control. And there's a rule. There's only 2 rules really in block therapy. I'm not a fan of rules, but we want to stay a minimum of 3 minutes because we can't rush melting. And your breath is your guide. As long as you're breathing in a relaxed way, you will be feeding and healing the cells that we're addressing. If you're breathing in a stressed way because it's too much pain, that's your body saying, okay, that's too much. You need to back off, because having a compromised breath isn't going to be as effective. So if you're blocking on the floor and it's too much pain, you can block in bed. There's more cushion. We have 2 different sizes of blocks. And we even teach people how to use a rolled up towel if that's too much as a starting point. So it becomes this very intuitive exploration, and it's all about what you can handle, what you allow. So that's the key. It's not some other therapist going and doing something to you. It's you choosing what you do for yourself. And that's the beauty of it, because again, it's very empowering. And a lot of people, like people say with fibromyalgia, they think, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to lie on a hard piece of wood or bamboo because I'm already in so much pain. But the pressure fibers are larger than the pain fibers, and they kick in once we allow ourselves that time with the breath. So then it becomes a good pain. And I have over 6,000 people in my Facebook community group, all that block. And that's the thing, like, they're like, I'm a blockaholic. I can't stop doing this. Part of the reason is because we're connecting to the parasympathetic nervous system. We're slowing everything down. So everybody's in this stress mode, force, everything's fast, everything's convenient. We slow the body down so you finally feel that sense of inner peace and you connect to that. So for me, starting with real issues with anxiety, that was the driver for me. But then very quickly, I'm like, holy smokes, now I'm changing my size and shape. And then very quickly, it was like, wow, my pain is going away. So all of these things happen. And the community is just so lovely. I just want to share this one because it's so amazing. I have a class, a 60-minute class in my membership called Hair Health. So I teach people how to unglue the scalp from the skull to make sure that the hair follicles are nice and fed and all of those wonderful things. When I did it though, you're also, I mean, if you think of how we age, gravity is constantly pulling our system forward and down. So most people don't sit perfectly symmetrical. You might be sitting like this. So if I sit like this all the time, everything's going to get pulled and manipulated over the course of time. And that's how we age. So we might have a jowl, we might have a droopy eyelid. That's also going to affect the function of vision and your brain. When your brain is here, like it gets squished. So now it's not getting properly fed. So I have a member in my community, Gary Sharp. He's from the UK. And he started with me about 2.5 years ago. He has his website is Outthinking Parkinson's. So he had to go very slowly with this process because he had taken so many chemical meds and he was very toxic. So, like that's the nice thing. You drive the amount that you do. But when he started my hair health, which I put in my site about 4 or 5 months ago now, he was doing it 3 times a week. And he said, of all things he's ever done, this has been the most impactful at decreasing his neurological symptoms of Parkinson's, because he's getting that brain properly fed. He's pulling all the toxins and all of those adhesions out, and he's rewiring things as a result. So that was just so exciting for me because yes, it improved. And he said, plus the bald spot is starting to change, and his hair, people are commenting on how good his hair looks. So that's the nice thing. No matter what you start for, whether it's a vanity reason or if it's a function reason or a trauma, because trauma also gets stored and stuck because it's the breath. Pain, fear, and stress cause us to reactively hold the breath. So again, that traumatic event that I get frozen in, this is how I move over time forward. That magnetic connection to the emotion is still stuck inside. So when we start releasing it, we release the energy that was stored around that. And it also gives us a chance to go back and create a different perspective on what happened so that we can move forward from a place of freedom.
It is like the evolution of yoga. This is even beyond yoga. It is self-massage in a way. It really is self-massage when you can do it yourself. Is there any comparison with massage, or how do you define the two, block therapy versus massage? It is self-massage.
It's actually self-fluid isometrics. So fluid isometrics is the name of the technique that I developed, and how it differs from massage is we follow the Fibonacci sequence. This was really interesting. I was about 2 years into this intuitive exploration, working on my patients. And then somebody said to me, you need to be teaching this. And I thought, wow, like I've just been following the flow with my hands. So then I really started to pay attention to what I was doing with my hands, and then starting to research some other things. And I recognized that my hands were intuitively following the Fibonacci sequence, which is the architecture of everything in nature, the spiral. Energy moves in waves and spirals. So as I moved deeply through the layers of tissue with my hands, I was again very effectively unzipping the seams of time. That's kind of how I relate it. So block therapy is self fluid isometrics. Rolling would be like self massage. So again, we don't stay on the surface, we go deep, and that's the difference.
Beautiful. So when you're talking about the hair health, that's amazing. What's going on there? Let's start with that one. Is it just, you're unwinding or unzipping that fascia that has been programmed through gravity and trauma and all of it? So explain more on that one.
Yeah. So what we teach, there's cause sites and pain sites. So when I'm looking at a full body, the calves and the feet, they're the furthest from the diaphragm. That is where the fascia is the most frozen. So when you see people, most people pronate, I think about 90% of people collapse inward at the ankles, 10% go in the opposite direction, but very, very, I don't think I've ever seen anybody that's perfectly neutral and perfectly aligned. So however your lower body moves and functions, that pulls the upper body forward and down. So now here's my hair, here's my head. Again, like if I'm over my lifetime falling, the hair starts migrating. That's why people get baldness, because the hair follicle moves further away than where the feed of blood and oxygen is. So it starts getting pulled away. We start losing color. We start losing hair health. So as this happens, because the fascia, again, it's designed to support us. So it grips. We have all these adhesions onto the bone. So this is what ultimately, this is the apex of our whole body. So everything is getting drawn forward and down. So as we're doing this hair health, what we do, it's a combination of a couple things. And I do it sitting at a table so people can rest their elbows so their arms don't get fatigued. But the most important piece is gripping and grabbing, and then very gently drawing the scalp away. And if I do this for 3 minutes, again, I'm pulling away, and I'm not forcing, I'm not ripping my hair out. It's a gentle but consistent pressure combined with the breath. Now you're pumping that blood and oxygen into this space, and you can feel the difference, because we should be able to feel the scalp fluidly moving on the skull. And most people, at least in certain parts, you'll feel it stuck. And where it's stuck, there's very little blood flow getting to that, especially if you do have balding areas. You'll feel that there's no glide. So that we want there to be a glide between the scalp and the skull so that we can get the blood in there. So we go through the whole head, and essentially that's what happens. And we have many people in our community sharing how impactful it is, not only on the look of their hair, but also their face, because we're basically pulling the scalp back and down instead of getting it bunched up forward and down. And that's going to help to lift the wrinkles through here and support blood flow into the eyes for vision. Like all of these things are interconnected. And again, as long as cells are properly fed and clean, they're happy, they're not complaining with pain, and they're doing their job for us. It's when they don't get what they need, that's when we start to struggle. And pain is the first signal. It's like the baby crying. You wouldn't ignore your crying baby, but we're ignoring our pain because we're masking it. It's inconvenient. We don't like it. We'll posturally avoid it. We'll still play that golf game, but we might alter the way that we go through the swing so that we can still enjoy the game. But over time, those compensations add up to more compression. And this is all about fascia decompression.
Wow, it really is fascinating. And I know that this is new for many people, and we're very excited for it because it seems like this is something for the total body, not just the body, but for health in general. And so, not to be too vain here, but you did mention as well, like for beauty, it can be for beauty. If we're using this for the hair in that way, then it would affect, it could be like a mini facelift. We can give ourselves a facelift just by the fascia that we're moving through. What would you do for something like that? Would it still be involving the head and the face and decompression for 3 minutes?
So I just had my 21-day head, neck, and face program. We did as a community back in April, and we had winners before and afters because that's just part of the fun. In 21 days, and if you actually go to my blocktherapy.com, under my about is my blogs. And so it's probably 5 or 6 blogs ago, we posted the winners. 21 days, oh my goodness. The before and after of the faces of the 3 winners was phenomenal. And what excites me, it's not just like about making your face look younger. It's literally changing the shape of your skull. So our winner, first of all, she was very double chin, a lot of creases. One side, you could see that the skull was compressed more, had a hanging eye, you know, the way the lines were in the face. And after the 21 days, you can hardly see anything through here. Her entire head broadened. So now there's more room for the brain. And so again, like the vanity aspect is real. And of course, we all want to look our best, but really it comes down to understanding structurally what's going on. So she literally created more room in her skull for her brain, for the eyes to receive proper amounts of blood and oxygen flow, everything else. So the skin lifts as soon as we start melting these adhesions through, and we're blocking everything. So the first week we focus on the rib cage, because the rib cage is the foundation for the head and the neck. We also want to make sure that that breath is nice and strong, because if I just work on my face, but my rib cage is like this, I'm only going to get so far. So we work on that rib cage to lift it up, to open everything up through here. Then we got into the shoulders and the neck. I've got a series in there, double blocking the throat and the neck, where we're getting right in through here. We're getting all those lines. We're improving flow for the thyroid, the major lymphatic drainage sites, the carotid arteries. Everything gets opened. And then we move up into the face and the skull to finally release all those adhesions in there. And just again, once a week, I had them also doing the hair health class to get all of that released. So we block absolutely everywhere. Every single inch of the body we're touching with this tool through the various programs that we have available.
It really is fascinating. And I know I'm not the only one really excited about this. I have a block here. This is the miniature one with the logo and everything on it. And this is something that people can do every day for their health. I love the fact that you said we can do it in bed. So what is that like for you? Because your course is online and you bring people in and it's videos and pretty much a self-paced course as well, or are there other aspects to that?
That's the great thing. We have initially we have our 9-class starter program that we have people go through, and that teaches you how to use the block safely throughout the body, how to connect to the breath, how to really understand pain in your body. And we really encourage people to take that at whatever pace they need. So there's 3 25-minute classes. We always start in the core and the ribs, then the pelvis, legs and feet, then the head, neck and arms. Then there's 3 45-minute classes, then 3 90-minute classes. So that people have for life with the starter program. We also have a 2-week free trial into our membership where I have multiple programs, daily guided programs that not only teach you blocking, but also incorporate proper alignment training, so that, again, once we release things, we want to start teaching people how to use their bodies in the proper way, so we don't just fall back into those old patterns that ultimately took us to where we were to begin with. We have so much community support. I'm available all the time. I have my Facebook community group. 2 of my therapists run that group. So there's that's basically 24/7 support, as well as the community is there to provide support. So if somebody has Parkinson's or fibromyalgia or whatever the issue, and they've been blocking, they're really the block experts for that specific thing, because they're the ones experiencing it. So this community is filled with wisdom. And then you can ask, like, like lots of people have to take things a little slower, but everything is laid out so that you can really adjust at your own pace. Some people dive in and they just want to go and they want to do lots. And again, we do it lying down. So you can follow the classes, but we also have in the starter program, passive blocking in the house. So that if you're sitting watching a TV show, those calves on most people are like rocks. They're really one of the major cause sites for pretty much absolutely everything in the body. So you can have the block under your calf while you're watching a TV show for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, if it feels right for you. Everything is based on how you feel, but the guidance is there. We make it really, really simple. And for people that need that added support, there's always support. So you're never left on your own, and your questions will always be answered.
Yeah, really very good. Thank you again. So I love that you can do it lying down, and it is your own, it's gravity and your own body in a state of ease and grace. And when people use this, it's for everyone, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But if someone's dealing with a health issue, what results have you seen from that? Does it lower blood pressure?
Yes.
All of this, yeah.
I have one of my books, Fascia, Decompression, The Missing Link in Self-Care. That was the one that I've self-published. It's on Amazon. And we also have it as a free gift somewhere on my site. But each chapter has a testimonial from somebody that had been blocking for anywhere from 3 months to 3 years. One of my first teachers, Rose, was 69 when she began. A year after, she had her bone density checked, and her bone density had increased. So I have had other people who's actually, this was wonderful. And this is in my second book. I talk about this one, a woman who started in her 80s with this, and she had a certain amount of eye pressure. And when she went back after a number of months, her eye pressure had decreased from 15 and 16 to 9 and 10. So amazing. People with, again, Parkinson's symptoms improving. Florencia Cerruti, who was introduced by Gary Sharp, she wrote a book, Rebirth at 50. So when she was 45, and she was a rock star in her life, like she had a family, I think she was a naturopath, she was an artist, she was doing all of these things, and then ends up getting Parkinson's at 45. She writes a book, Rebirth at 50, explaining the challenges that she had to go through. And then started with me, I think when she was 53, we have a discussion with her on my YouTube channel, and the changes that in 6 months, even her Parkinson's marker numbers were going in reverse, which they'd never seen before. So it doesn't really matter what the issue is, there's improvement. Cellulite, where we just launched today our 21-day advanced pelvis, legs, and feet program, and cellulite and varicose veins are the vanity aspect version of what's going on. But cellulite is amazing because ultimately it's the fascia gripping onto bone to try to keep us from tipping over. And then those adhesions, they twist, creating the dimples, which creates the appearance, but it also blocks blood and oxygen flow to cells on the other side. So it's not just about how things look, it's about the flow in general and how the body functions. So pretty much anything and everything, fascia innervates every cell. So every issue is improved by understanding how to feed and take care of the fascia system.
Yes, and I just heard that word, the issues in the tissues. And so, as we understand that our emotions are in every cell, this is going to make us emotionally stable and stronger as well, fortified. So remarkable results, 3 months, 6 months, 21 days, you've even seen changes within people. So when the people with health issues who are visiting their doctors and they share this news with their doctors, are you making headway in the medical realm? Are doctors saying everyone needs this?
Some do. Dr. Eric Robbins, who's in my community group, he's very vocal. We're actually going to be having a trauma relief summit in the fall, and he's going to be really impactful with that with us. He has recognized that this is such an important piece for trauma release. So not all doctors are awake. You think some will care, some don't, but I have lots of doctors referring people to us though.
I love it. Thank you. And again, it's the experiences of the people doing it that will make that greater headway into that. And this will be mainstream someday. You really are pushing the envelope forward in this.
Yes.
Really good. Awesome.
We have over 220 people globally in our teacher program so that they can directly affect their communities as well.
See, I love that. So you're really training the trainers as well as the individuals. And it may seem simple as sitting there. When people just hang out with the blocks, like you said, you could do this in bed, you could do it if you're watching TV. How long does it take? You said 3 minutes per position, but if someone were to just get in a regular routine, what is that like?
So the majority of my daily guided programs in the membership are 30 minutes plus a 3 to 5 minute alignment training. But even if you only do 15 minutes a day, what I always do in the morning before I get out of bed, I start with the belly position. So again, right through here, and then I go to my lower ribs. And in day one of our starter program, this is really kind of where we address things in through here and into the sternum. So I always do that. And then that in itself, it charges the breath. It heats up the core. It improves that whole elimination in the morning, and it just lifts you up and it gives you that like boost of oxygen. So even if that is all that you did every single day, you're going to feel and notice amazing changes, because again, it comes down to the breath. So when we breathe diaphragmatically, we feed the body up to 6 times the oxygen. So 6 times is amazing. It's 600% more oxygen. Every single cell, the ATP in the cell is run by oxygen. So I don't work out. I mean, I walk in the summer here, not in the winter, and I block basically. And that's all that I do. And I can hold up a 300-pound person on my feet, flying them for probably 15 or 20 minutes, not because I strengthen my legs, because I know how to breathe and always keep feeding those cells what they require. And I've melted through those adhesions that would block that flow to those cells. So again, like we've got a very specific understanding of what fitness and what health and aging are, but I see it very, very differently. And it really does come down to restoration and persuasion versus force, and then oxygenation and the ability again to detoxify with that proper breath. Because the more carbon we exhale out of the body, we're pulling in oxygen, but we're moving carbon dioxide out. So every breath, we're moving out a bigger piece than what we're pulling in. So, I mean, when I was constipated, I thought that was why I had such a big belly, because I have all this waste stuck inside me. But I mean, if you're lucky, some people, if you're lucky, you take a bowel movement a day. Some people every 3 days, some people it's once a week. I mean, there's a lot of that issue going on. But with every breath, every single breath, you can be detoxifying. When you can wrap your head around that, it's a really different game. And you start to feel it right away. And in fact, so many people in my community after doing day one say, wow, I'm sitting up straighter, I feel calmer, and I have better range of motion in my core. And then we go from there.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're excited for it. When you are breathing in that first belly button block area, do you have, what are some of the things that people experience? Like, is it hard to breathe? And that's the indication to relax the breath a little bit more? Or what's that like for folks?
We're connecting to pain. So, I mean, and that can be extremely varied, right? So some people, like, again, within a minute, like if you can actually connect in within a minute, you suddenly feel that pain changes. And that in itself is so exciting, because what is uncomfortable, suddenly you're still connecting to pain, because we want you to drive through those layers, because again, pain just equals adhesion, really. So once you feel comfortable with that pain though, and you start to feel those results and those changes, it becomes something that people are drawn to do more. It's like that itch you can't quite scratch, and you're finally getting to it. So, and again, if it is too intense, I mean, we've got different ways of approaching it. We have chair classes. If people aren't comfortable lying on the block, doing it on the bed, using the rolled up towel. Some people don't like it right away because they might be so toxic that they can actually, like, healing crises are real. So, you know, like some people are like, oh, I got on it and I felt a little nauseated. Well, that's because your liver is really toxic, right? So we want to heat that liver up, and fatty liver disease is on the rise. And the thing about fatty liver disease, butter at room temperature is a solid. You heat it up, it becomes a liquid. So when we're doing, for example, this position with the block right on the liver, combined with that movement of the breath, you're very effectively heating and melting the fats that were trapped in the liver, so we can make that organ that much more efficient. So that's the nice thing. Everything moves very quickly through the body with the melting process. And some people in our community, they have a healing crisis. It can scare them, but then they come back because they're like, they keep watching and they keep hearing, and the amount of support is incredible. So it's really teaching people the difference about good pain and bad pain. And when we're blocking, we're not adding pain to the body. We're making you aware of the pain that's already within you, but deeper than what you're consciously aware. So we connect you to that deeper stuff. So you can find it, you can pull it out with the breath and say goodbye. And then you go in, you go deeper, you find more. You pull it up, you meet it, you say, hey, pain is like the bully. Make friends with the bully and it's no longer a problem. There's a pain fear cycle that we get trapped in. So by finding the pain on purpose, we take the fear out of the equation. And then pain is simply a sensation, and we have a process to move you past that.
Finding the pain on purpose, seeking the pain. The pain is the fascia. The pain is the fascia that is frozen. Isn't it amazing that just that small act is so huge? The small act of putting a block somewhere and hanging out on it, that will heat up. Just and there's no visualization or anything. It's really just using the tool to help the body unwind from that fascia. Isn't it amazing? I mean, you just must be amazed. You don't have to work out. You're not working out anymore, and you look great.
Thank you.
And this is a new modality for the world. When you look at the world 5, 10, 20 years from now, and this therapy, what do you see?
I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, and actually it was since 2 years ago when everything became locked down. That was when we really started to take off, because people couldn't go to the chiropractor or the gym. And it was typically the 40 to 75-year-old woman that was drawn to this. And then it became the husband and the kids, because for those reasons. So this last couple of years has really positively impacted my business. My biggest passion are the kids. The kids are in trouble. They grew up in front of technology combined with a whole bunch of other problems. They are twisted and compressed, and they're coming out of mothers now who grew up in front of technology. They don't have the space to grow fully functioning, healthy kids anymore. And we come out with our mother's breath. So the very compromised mother's breath of today is impacting the little ones. And then they're growing up from this place of breathing through here. You and I, we would have breathed diaphragmatically, and then over time, pain, fear, and stress cause us to reactively hold the breath. I'm seeing kids today I'm seeing babies today that aren't breathing diaphragmatically. And that is dramatically changing the way that they are forming and growing and functioning. So even in my membership, I have a video where I teach parents how to support the baby's diaphragmatic breaths through adding compression and heat into the rib cage as they're just walking around. It's so simple to do, but because they're so compressed and twisted, my goal is in 5 years that we get these kids opened up, because they're already older in tissue than we are, for whatever age we are. Again, I'm in my 50s, but their bodies are denser, they're harder, they're less oxygenated, and we're seeing the struggles. I mean, the amount of anxiety and scoliosis. I have a scoliosis program, and I see so many kids that are so twisted. And I mean, that's just chaos waiting to happen. So my goal is to get the kids.
Kudos on you. Thank you so much for bringing this to our planet. I do see a world where the medical profession, because of the stories, because of the remarkable changes and shifts in people, that is going to be a landslide in awareness for that medical community. And in our world right now, it seems like mental health is seriously being looked at as a force to be reckoned with. And this is something that will stabilize mental health, right? As we're connecting to the body so deeply, there brings a peace about the process. It allows someone to rest in their heart space. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. And to connect to that higher self, because again, God lives in a space. So when we're so compressed and twisted, we've decreased our connection to God, to our internal space. Greg Braden talks in the God Code about how on the surface membrane of every cell is the message God eternal within the body. So when we actually can connect to more of those cells, we hear more of that message. When we're so twisted and we're so a shell of what we could be, we're maybe connecting to 10%, 20%, whatever the amount is. It's not all the cells in the body. And when we can really find that proper breath and heat the body properly and own correct alignment, then we have the connection to all of the cells. And that's when our real, true creative gifts can surface.
And this is beyond yoga. This is so totally different. I mean, I'm sure it's related in some way, as yoga is having really good benefits, but this is a 21st century modality. Did it come around the turn of the century?
It was the year 2000 when this whole initial anxiety attack happened. And when I started with this process, yes, it's exactly when.
It's a 21st century modality. Awesome. There is a link on this webpage. I'm excited for it. Again, I've got my blog, and I invite this community to check out this program and give us the results of your experience. How cool is that, to do something that's simple with ease and grace, yet so many benefits. The back end benefits are so powerful and exciting for everyone. So the link here to your special offer, there's a link that goes directly to your website. Do you want to share with folks what they could do or what's offered on those links?
So the free gift we're offering, it's 9 videos. Each one ranges, I believe, between 8 and 15 minutes, teaching you how to use the rolled up towel. And that in itself is really effective at decompressing fascia. There's no question, these are a whole new game, but to understand the process and to decide if this is something that you want to dive into, that's a free program. We cover the full body, and the number of incredible testimonials we have had from our sampler program, I was actually quite shocked. I was like, wow, like this is amazing. Because again, it's not about block therapy, it's about fascia decompression. So that's a free fascia decompression course that all of your listeners can dive into. And then if you choose, you want to try the starter program, and I would recommend getting both tools for sure, because I got a lot of double blocking classes that just make everything that much more efficient. Certain areas of the body, like for example, the side waist right in through here, we do work in through here. For some, that's too intense because they don't have any space in there. So the little one might be more comfortable for you. In some cases, the little one goes deeper. So, and then also when I travel, whether I'm on a plane or in a car, I have this with me because I'll put it under my leg, behind my back. I mean, just when you start to dive in, you really start to see that you can just do this when you're doing other things as well and still get those benefits. And for sure, if you're doing a class consciously, that's going to ramp it up. But just sitting with this under my hamstring, that's going to be more effective than any hamstring stretch that you'll ever do. So there's so many ways to pull this into your life. And the nice thing is once you have it forever. Once you know how to take care of your fascia, you have an injury, you know how to heal it super effectively. In fact, I just want to share June 25th, our blog will be coming out with Lisa Songer-Burke. She's in my teacher program. She, a year and a half ago, ran in at 83 miles per hour on her sled into an ice wall, broke 8 bones in 13 places. They never thought she would walk again or use her left hand. She had broken her wrist in 6 places, as well as her elbow plates, the whole thing. They thought she was going to be like this forever. I spent 25 weeks working with her once a week. She's walking without a limp, and she has almost full use. She only has a little bit more of her thumb to go, and then she's back to where she was. So the understanding of how to heal these kinds of injuries as well. I have a very different perspective on acute injury and what to do with it. We're healing bones very quickly. So again, like just understanding how to look after the body's natural responses to stress and injury changes how we approach the body. We don't want to ice. We don't want to be stopping flow for the first 48 to 72 hours. That's like having a baby and ignoring it for the first 2 to 3 days of their life. That's when the cells, they need our attention. So we need to understand how to improve the flow as opposed to stop the flow.
Wow. Again, those testimonials, when they reach the medical profession, it's going to be a no-brainer for them. So you're
Doctors are
doing,
pretty excited actually, yeah, because they see
yeah.
they didn't think she again, like when the doctor first, like, and this is all on the video, it's on our YouTube channel right now actually, and it was just wonderful. But when the doctor first saw her walking without a limp, he's like, what's
What
going
did you
on?
do?
Yeah. And then she
Yeah.
had run in 3 weeks prior to the call that we did. She had run into the EMT that assisted her at the time of the injury, and they made a bet that she'd never be walking again.
Well, good thing she didn't listen to that or even take that in. This
Yeah.
is really a responsible way for us to deal with our bodies, no matter what we face, what we're faced with.
Yes.
Really quite simple. And really the power of the fascia, you are really illustrating that for everyone. It really is amazing. I'll say it one more time. And I thank you so much for it. So the healing that we can do on our own from a technique like this, again, it is remarkable. I encourage all of our listeners to sign up at least for the free gift and join us in that realm and bring this into your life and feel the changes that it does. I'm very excited for it myself. So thank you so much, Deanna. As we wrap up our show today, I just want to leave you with a moment to share any other final thoughts for our guests.
I think the most important thing we need to do is be kind first to ourselves and our cells. Our cells are like little mini babies. We have over 1 trillion of them. There's a video, Life of a Cell by David Belinsky. And when you see the immense synchronicity and the beauty inside every one of these cells, what they require is space. If there's less space, there's congestion. We know how we would feel if we were backed into an elevator and cramped and perfume's too strong and noise, we get angry. So the cells, when we have anxiety, when we're not feeling good, those cells don't have the space. So when we can first be kind to ourselves and ourself, it's very easy to be kind to others. When we can forgive ourselves and ourself, we can forgive others. Putting it outward first and forgetting ourselves, to me, doesn't make sense, because how can you, like, we're magnetic emotional beings. So what we put out comes back. So when we can put that love from within out, it changes humanity, I believe.
Hallelujah. Thank you for that. Be kind to yourselves and yourself. I love it. All right. And here's the question I had for you. One last question. So we can use this when we experience maybe a physical injury. For example, if we sprain our ankle, what would we do with this technique? What would be the protocol?
The really great thing is you can work from the distance. So we always start core and ribs to engage the breath. Once you learn how to breathe properly, you're a more efficient healer for yourself from within. So that in itself starts the program. Then I've got classes, even just my starter program. I have three classes for the lower body. And it's all about, again, opening the channels for flow. So we don't even have to work directly on the area of injury to make huge changes to that injury. Simply following and opening the flow to pull the debris from the injury away, and then to start feeding blood and oxygen and all the nutrients to repair what's been damaged occurs naturally by melting the adhesions along the way. And then, of course, we have so much support that if people need to reach out specifically, I've got so much content. I do teach people how to use their hands in my membership. So if you do have a sprained ankle, combining that where you have the actual injury with all the other work to open the flow, within days, instead of weeks, within days, people can heal torn ligaments, tendons, fractures. We're healing fractures again, a quarter of the time to what would happen if you got casted. And the challenge with injuries like that, it's not even so much the injury, it's the compensations that really create the whole rest of your body to get pulled out of balance. If you're walking on crutches, for 2 weeks, that's going to impact you head to toe. I teach people to start weight bearing right away. Now, of course, if you've got a serious injury, you want to be working with one of my teachers or therapists so that we guide you properly, or at least in the community. But for those little things, when you sprain an ankle, this process just changes everything very, very quickly.
All right, really fascinating. Thank you so much for bringing it forward. So for those who are ready to melt the fascia, connect with yourselves, be kind with yourselves, this is a wonderful program, and it's all free. with that free package, and of course, going deeper with the starter program. Thank you so much, Deanna. Really remarkable. And again, congratulations. And we wish you the best. We will watch your business unfold even further and become mainstream for New Earth. Thank you.
So much, Lauren. It's been a pleasure.